What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone is doing well today. There I am. Sorry, I was running a little bit behind today. Had to get my notes and everything ready to go. But I am here now, ready to talk to you guys about what else professional wrestling, sports entertainment. As yesterday we had the new episode of NWA Powerrr drop on the CW app. We also had WWE NXT, my NXT, damn it, an NXT that now, thanks to Crybaby Khan, has to compete with AEW Double or Nothing on Sunday, May 26th, the same day as NXT Battleground. Battleground's been announced for well over a month and a half. And now today, Tony Khan has decided that he wants to run against that when the Saturday is wide open. But I digress. Let's talk about some wrestling that matters today. NWA Powerrr to kick things off. And I will say that overall, the hour program was about 50-50. There was some solid good stuff and there was some mid to meh stuff. It seemed like it started off hot and kind of cooled off by the main event. Not good as far as arranging the show. Definitely want to start hot, but if you're going to have a lull, you want to have it mid show and come back strong for the main event. So, as you may remember, last week I talked about the NWA National Championship being laid down. Thrillbilly Silas wants a shot at EC3 in the world title, the 10 pounds of gold, the prestigious NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So today they began the tournament to see who was going to become the new national champion. And if I remember correctly, it's an 8-man tournament. We had 2 sets of matches over the course of Powerrr. The first match kicking off the show was Magic Jake Dumas versus Burchell. Once again, you guys may remember Pirate Paul Burchell and Paul Burchell, Katie Lee. He just wrestles as Burchell now in the NWA. This was a solid opening contest. Burchell was selling a shoulder injury, but it made him fight harder. Dumas was able to dominate for a good portion because of the Burchell selling. But at the end of the day, Burchell was able to pull off the victory, which is what I was hoping for. I've picked Burchell to go all the way to the end and win the national championship. We'll see what happens in the long run, but he's one step closer to my prediction with this victory here today. We then had Pretty Empowered and Kenzie Page cutting a promo on Natalia Markova. Natalia Markova has long been a favorite of ours in the Jeff Meacham Network multiverse of media when it comes to NWA current roster talent. She's the number one contender to Kenzie Page and the Burke. So Kenzie Page, with the rest of Pretty Empowered, cut a scathing promo on Markova. Very, very good stuff. We then had Alex Misery versus Mecha Wolf. And can we just get a Forbidden Door type stable going here with Alex Misery, Joe Gacy, and Crazy Steve? All of them seem to be cut from the same cloth, the same mold here, you know. It just seems like they would be really fun to work as a trios. But this was just a fun little match. Misery climbed up to the top of the NWA lettering in the arena, which the announcers said was 20 feet in the air. I don't know about all that, but it was definitely high up. But he climbed up there, dove onto Mecha Wolf, and regardless of that and that amazing feat and that amazing move and being able to take Mecha Wolf out momentarily, for the majority of the match, Mecha Wolf was able to keep Misery grounded and get the victory. I was a little bit disappointed in that one as far as who won. The match was solid. It was fun. It was good. It wasn't horrible, but I just wish Misery had won after that death-defying stunt, especially since he hit it and he didn't miss. Now, if he had missed and crashed and burned, yeah, of course. But since he knocked Mecha Wolf on his ass, I think he should have got the victory there. We then had EC3, our current reigning and defending NWA World Heavyweight Champion, cut a promo on Silas Mason. You know, as I mentioned, he's now going to be the #1 contender, having turned in his national championship, basically pulling an option C from TNA Impact. So EC3 cuts a promo on him. We then get a tag team match. Jax Dane, Jax Dane and Tim Storm versus Magnum Muscle. And this was just a mid-match. Like, I was not really impressed. I thought it could have been a heck of a lot better. Nothing special to write home about here. Tim Storm and Jax Dane get the victory. We then had Rolando Freeman cut a promo, and if you remember a couple weeks ago, I mentioned this Rolando dude. He's a little person. Him and his partners are going to be taking on another little person, teaming up with Mike Knox and Trevor Murdoch, who y'all probably remember from their WWE runs. Mike Knox was a part of WWE CW. Murdoch, tag team partners of Lance Cade, tag team champions. So next week, we're going to get this 6-man tag team match. But I'm good on the circus attraction of the vertically challenged. Like, unnecessary. Main event was AJ Kazana versus Zion. And it was decent. This was another match to see who would move on in the national championship tournament. It was decent, but it wasn't as good as Dumas versus Burchell. I would have flipped the two matches. Kicked the show off with this one and ended with Dumas Burchell because that was the best match of the night. This one was still hot. It was good. Plus, there's this embedded rivalry between the Kazana family and Austin Idol, who's the manager of Zion. So it would have been a hot way to start the show. I'm sure that's why they saved it for the main event, because it was supposed to be the hot feud. But it just didn't translate as far as the action goes. Zion remains undefeated in singles action as he picks up the victory over AJ Kazana, moving a step closer to the national championship. What's going on, Walter? Good to see you, bro. That is going to cover everything as far as the NWA goes. I am going to take a quick commercial break, show you all of the upcoming specials that will be a part of open mic night for the remainder of this year, whether they are karaoke shows or game show nights. And we will be back in a little over a minute to discuss last night's episode of WWE NXT. Stay tuned.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
We are back. So as you can see, there's a lot of special stuff coming up on Open Mic Night, kicking off this Saturday with our second annual Open Mic Night karaoke night. Wrestling karaoke night, I should say, because we've done quite a few karaoke nights, but the second annual wrestling karaoke night, where we'll be doing all kinds of wrestling theme songs. Moving into NXT, and this was a really fully loaded episode of NXT last night as we move towards Stand and Deliver. Of course, we had last night's episode, and then we have next week, and then it's WrestleMania weekend. It's Stand and Deliver weekend. So we're trying to fill out the card. We now have 4 of what will probably be 6 matches definitive. We know for a fact the tag titles will be on the line. We just don't know who will be in that match as of yet. Next week, we'll have the triple threat to determine the challengers to Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker. And if everything that happened last night kind of maintains flow, I think I've got the 6th match predicted. I'll talk to you about it when we get there. NXT, though, kicked off with Dijak versus Shawn Spears, and this was a fantastic opening match. Some brutal punishment between both men, hard hitting. Both men brought their A game. Just wasn't enough on this evening for the perfect 10 Shawn Spears. Dijak gets the victory, which I gotta admit kind of surprised me. For the most part, Dijak has been just kind of an enhancement talent, if you will. He's been a measuring stick. I think that's a better word to use for Dijak than enhancement talent. He's been a measuring stick. People have gone up against Dijak to kind of prove that they're ready to go to the next level because he's already been on the main roster. Granted, it was part of that horrendous gimmick, but he's been on the main roster. So Dijak's kind of been being used as this measuring stick, like, okay, if you can have a good rivalry with Dijak, a good feud with Dijak, you're ready to move up to the main roster. Shawn Spears doesn't need that, though. But at the same time, Shawn Spears just recently came back. So you'd think that they'd want to give him a few more victories to really get, rerouted in NXT. We then had a Roxanne Perez vignette, and this was just some great storytelling, some great filmmaking, as we had Roxy basically watching footage of her from her first year in NXT. And she talks about how that girl makes her physically sick now. How she was so goody-goody, so bubbly, so nice. And for what? And again, I've said this a number of times. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it during Stand and Deliver. I wanted Roxanne Perez to be the equivalent of Ricky Steamboat, the forever good guy. I understand why they pulled the trigger here with Cora Jade's injury. And I do kind of like this new edge. If I'm being honest, I like this new aggressiveness of Roxy. But I still don't know if it was the right way to go. As long as she wins the title from Lyra at Stand and Deliver, then I think it'll be worthwhile. But if they do all this to Roxy and she loses, I think it's going to be a big mistake. And again, we'll go more in depth into this on predictions, but there's way more baby faces on the NXT women's roster than there are heels. So I think we need a solid heel champion to fight the baby faces. We then have a backstage segment that took place earlier in the day, and it's for the Stand and Deliver hosts. It's a casting call. And we see Hank and Tank back there. We see Malik Blade, Idris Enofe, and Brinley Reese back there. We see Andre Chase coming out of the room having just auditioned. And we see the Metaphor walk in. And we find out later in the evening, Metaphor will be the official hosts of Stand and Deliver. I'm not sure how I feel about that. At least I don't have to watch Noam Dar wrestle on Stand and Deliver. He's just going to be annoying on the microphone. But I also get to see Lash legend and Jakara Jackson. And with the acknowledgement of that kiss between Lash and Trick a few weeks ago, and knowing the Trick versus Mello is our featured bout, more so than even the NXT Championship. Going to be interesting to see if she plays into that at all. We then had our first women's match of the night. Thea Hale representing Chase U versus Jasmine Nix. This was Jasmine's debut match. And for a rookie having her first TV match, this was some terrific storytelling from these two women. JC Jane definitely paid dividends on the outside as she got the rest of Chase U ejected. She tried to throw a towel into the ring to make it seem like Thea was submitting, but Riley Osborne got in there, caught the towel before it could hit the mat, preventing that. We had, sorry, I got a little bit distracted there. But at the end of the day, the ejection just wasn't enough as Thea made Jasmine tap out. Post-match, JC Jane got in the ring and started beating Thea Hale down. Kiana James and Izzy Dane came down and assisted in the beatdown. This gets Fallon Henley and Kaylani Jordan to come out and assist Thea. I think our other match at Stand and Deliver is going to be Thea, Fallon, and Kaylani versus Kiana, Izzy, and JC. Because there's definitely been the feud between Thea and JC. And while we could just make that at Stand and Deliver and make it a one-on-one, there's so many good women in NXT that deserve the spotlight, that deserve that WrestleMania weekend rub, like Fallon, like Kaylani, like Kiana. The only one I don't really think deserves that spotlight rub right now is Izzy. She's still a little bit of an upstart as well. But 5 of those 6 women definitely deserve a WrestleMania weekend rub. And if Kiana and Izzy are a thing, then screw it. Throw her in there. You just put 6 more women on a WrestleMania weekend card. And it's just going to be phenomenal. We then had the first of 3 prime targets, I think they called them, basically chronicling the Trick Williams Carmelo Hayes story. This one was a little bit more from Carmelo's perspective and very well produced, very well told story. I mean, again, Jesus Christ, this is the stuff that WWE does that makes them stand apart from the competition. Well-produced video packages chronicling stories that make you care about the individuals in the match and why they're fighting in the first place. We then had the Alpha Academy backstage doing their thing, getting hyped up, ready for their matchup against Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker. That, of course, is our main event match. And keep in mind, if Alpha Academy can defeat the champions, they will get thrown into the tag team match at Stand and Deliver, making it a triple threat instead of just a one-on-one tag team match. We then had our next women's match for the evening, and Lola Vice came out and issued an open challenge. Open challenges are always interesting. You never know who's going to answer them. Natalya from Raw ends up answering Lola Vice's challenge. Another fantastic women's match. Natalya came out, took Lola Vice to the limit, and was able to defeat Lola in the process. Now, I've been reading a few people online who are salty at Natalya for beating Lola in this match. And what they have to remember is if Natalya is coming to NXT to have a match with somebody, then Shawn Michaels and the powers that be obviously feel that Lola Vice is ready to take that next step. Natalya came down, had a match with her, defeated her. Now, if Lola Vice gets that call up during the draft this year, you've got a ready-made feud when Lola comes up to the main roster, because Natalya came down to NXT and just embarrassed her. And now Lola's going to embarrass her on the main stage. The shit writes itself, y'all. Seriously, be a little bit more open-minded. There's a reason why Natalya is the boat. We then had Shawn Spears leaving, and Joe Gacy from the top of the Performance Center roof throws a chair at him, only for Obafemi to step on it as Shawn Spears is trying to pick it up. Definitely a little bit of tension here between Femi and Spears, and who knows what the hell Joe Gacy is thinking. We then had a Sol Ruka video package, and I know a lot of people wanted to see Sol Ruka versus Blair Davenport at Stand and Deliver, but we're going to get that match next week ahead of Stand and Deliver. But the Sol Ruka video package, once again, very well produced, chronicling her injury, her recovery, her road to coming back and everything. Well produced. Excuse me one second, y'all. Sorry about that, folks. Where was I? So after the Sol Ruca video package, we had Blair Davenport cut a promo, kind of responding to it. Again, very well done. Got the point across. Having the match next week. This brought us to Ilya Dragunov versus Stax, which I was a little surprised wasn't the main event. I mean, it's the champion. But it just goes to show that there's other things right now that are more important on NXT than the championship. Phenomenal action here. Saw Ilya get the victory. But Stax really got to it. Worked over his hand. It looked like Ilya dislocated or broke fingers. The way that Stax was dominating and beating him up. Just great action here once again. Again, another Trick and Mello story package. We had, this time it was more from Trick's perspective. Well told. We then had a backstage segment between the Good Brothers and Braun and Corbin, kind of setting up the potential of them facing off against each other at Stand and Deliver, being the team to challenge for the titles. Ridge Holland then comes out to the ring, announces that he is stepping away from the ring and action indefinitely. It's kind of interesting the way they're doing this here, the way that they are trying to build the story. I'm not sure the validity of everything. Part of me thinks that in a couple of weeks at Stand and Deliver, maybe, Ridge is going to come out, interject himself in a match, really kind of cause some chaos and everything. But it also could be a legitimate thing. We then had Lyra Valkyria cut a promo, kind of produced same way that Roxanne's was earlier in the night. Well-told story here. Getting the message across regarding this confrontation, this match that's going to be happening in Stand and Deliver. Duke Hudson versus Josh Briggs. This was for a North American championship opportunity. Another banger of a match here. Both men laid it all on the line. Briggs picked up the victory over Duke. Obafemi made an appearance from the top of the staging area there and said that at Stand and Deliver it'll be a triple threat match between the three men. Should be a fantastic match there coming up at Stand and Deliver. We then had another video package from Trick and Mello. This was the third and final one. This one kind of brought everything together, finishing up the story. Main event, of course, Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker versus Alpha Academy. If Alpha Academy wins, they were going to be thrown into the tag match at Stand and Deliver. Fun tag team main event here, but predictably, Braun and Corbin were able to pick up the victory. Post-match, the LWO, the Good Brothers, and Nathan Frazier and Axiom hit the ring to brawl with the champions, kind of building up the suspense here. And that just about wrapped things up for NXT. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time today doing shills and plugs, as there's not really much to hype up other than tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'll be back with my review of tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. Make sure you guys tune in for that. And until then, I will catch you guys next time.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports, and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.